very competitive, like really competitive, and field hockey is just a great way to release all that. Next to that is a picture of some mountains. I actually took that picture. That picture is specifically at a place called Delta Lake in Grand Teton National Park, Wyoming. Me and my family love hiking, and we hiked 8 miles upward to get that picture after we collapsed. So we love hiking. And next to that is 2 pictures of me. I'm a theater kid, surprise, surprise. I'm pretty loud, so I guess that explains it. And yeah, those are just 2 of the more recent plays I've done. The one is Little Mermaid, that's King Triton in the back. I did that at Hebron, and the other one is High School Musical. So that was fun. Anyway, now that I've told you about myself, well, there's one thing that I really can't show you here, but I've already talked about it plenty, is the fact that I am a very loud person. For those of you who know me, you know me. I'm a loud person, and I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not afraid to say anything. It's part of being a loud person. But yeah, one thing about being a loud person is that I'm always finding myself in arguments, and it's not really a good thing. It's not a good thing at all, actually. But it's not the type of kind of arguments you're thinking, because I am smart enough to know not to get into arguments about controversial things, because that's really not the best. I can get into the longest arguments about the stupidest things ever, the most dumb arguments, and you know, it's not really good. For example, does anyone remember that time on social media, like 2 years ago, when there was like a bunch of this or that debates? Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Like, for example, which comes first, milk or cereal? Or is water wet? I saw these, and it infuriated me that some people put milk first before cereal. Who is doing that? You? Goodness gracious. And the question is, water wet? I'm gonna say no. No, it's not wet. Do you go and feel water and say, that's really wet water? No, you don't. Be quiet, no you don't. Tisk tisk. But yeah, and it wasn't just on social media too. Like, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, if I walked up to a person, they would sometimes, like, to start a conversation, people would ask Marvel or DC, or McDonald's or Chick-fil-A, or dogs or cats. You know, it was just like a good conversation starter, I guess. But, you know, even as I was going through those, you guys were saying your answers, just as I thought you would. Good. And I was too. I can't really decide between Marvel and DC, but I assume most of you guys are Marvel fans. And for those of you who are DC fans, I know you probably have never told anyone that before, because you're afraid of getting attacked by the Marvel fans out there. Braden Lowe. And as far as the McDonald's or Chick-fil-A debate goes, I'm sorry, McDonald's will always land on top. Oh, whoa, okay. McDonald's is better, okay? I'm not gonna, dogs or cats? I love dogs. But I am allergic, so I'm a cat person. What do you want me to do? Break out in hives? No, I'm sorry, I have to say cats. But, see, the thing is, you know, as I was saying all these things, you guys knew what your answers were. You even booed me when I said that I like the opposite of you. And I feel like it only proves my point more. Not only was I very opinionated, per usual, but you can relate to what I'm saying about how there's a constant divide. People are always trying to make divisions between things, trying to start arguments. And, you know, these debates are harmless. Like, it's really, sometimes. I've seen people get into fistfights about which fries are better. But, you know, they're really pretty harmless. But I think it shows just how much there is constantly a divide in our world. Even from an early age, we are taught that there are two sides to things. We're taught that, there's good or bad. And, we as people automatically will want to be on the good side. And because it makes us feel like we are correct and others are not. And however, unfortunately, this mindset not only comes with the idea is that what we choose is going to be right, but if someone chooses something else, then they are wrong. And I believe this is the reason for not only why sometimes people can get so passionate about controversial topics, but it also makes us feel more superior when we think we're choosing the better thing. We as Christians must be willing to listen and learn from those with different opinions. And I cannot say that enough. It's very important to me. It is our job as Christians to bring people towards God. And if we separate ourselves from others, and other views, we aren't able to fulfill our role in bringing others close to God and learning about His greatness, because there are many examples of how we split ourselves in this world. Politics, sports team, different brand types. I could go on and on all day, but I really just want to focus on one today. During COVID, like many of you, I struggled. As I said, I am a very extroverted person, and I definitely thrive in social environments. So I really, really struggled without that. And I just felt lost with myself and where I stood with God. I guess it seemed to me that because everyone in my life was no longer present, then neither was God. And not feeling His security led me to doubt His word and what I had put my faith into my entire life. And all I wanted was proof. Many times growing up, I was often told by others that God is not real because science and facts say otherwise. And, I let that influence how I felt. And it created this divide in my mind between religion and science, one that I'm sure many of you guys are familiar with, especially with controversies in today's world, And oftentimes, it seems like we are put between choosing what is right, whether it be God or science. And I was terrified, not knowing where I stood at that time in my life, and contradicting my past self, who would have shut down any of those types of thoughts immediately. It was terrifying, because I know, as a kid, I would have been very confident in where I stood with God, and not having that confidence really, really scared me. To me, it was one or the other. It was one or the other. I either put my faith in God, and I believe in Him fully, or I just don't call myself a Christian. It's one or the other. The good or the bad, and the correct or the incorrect. It seemed like there was no middle ground, and I needed to find where I stood. And I decided that if I was to put my faith back in God, I needed to know if the science side of things were correct, and I needed a reliable source, like one that I know I could never doubt. So I went to Google. And what I found surprised me. Despite being told that Christianity and science were two completely contradicting things, I fell into a rabbit hole of sorts. And they were telling me that not only is God real, but there's scientific evidence that proves it as well. For instance, most of us know the story about how Moses and how he helped the Jews flee from Egypt by parting the water of the Red Sea. It's a very popular story. Well, in that story, it also explains that when the Egyptian soldiers tried to follow them, they were drowned by the waves as they came crashing back. A few years ago, some scientists unearthed pieces of sunken Egyptian chariots and weapons, showing solid evidence that this Bible story actually happened. Another instance where Bible stories can be proven by science is the story of Noah and his ark. In the story, Noah endures a credible flood. The entire world endures an incredible flood that covers the entire Earth's surface. And, well, it just so turns out that scientists discovered a layer within the Earth's crust that can be found even on the highest mountaintops, proving that the entire surface of the Earth was in fact covered in water for a certain period of time. Now, here is where it really gets interesting. Have any of you guys heard of the Big Bang Theory? And not the TV show? For those of you who aren't familiar with it, the Big Bang Theory is the idea that once upon a time, a bunch of astronomical particles in space kind of like combined, and then they blew up and stuff. That's why it's called the Big Bang Theory. And it created Earth. That's general gist of the idea. It's very complicated. I'm not going to go into it because I don't really understand it. But the idea is basically just things blew up and our world was created. And this theory has been actually around for a while and is really complicated. But scientists have been trying to build off this theory and they have made it into what it is today. However, this theory didn't always used to be so complicated. This theory first came into effect by a man named Jorge Lemaitre. That's French, very complicated. Who wasn't only a scientist, but he was also a Catholic priest. So it's weird that he would make a theory telling us how the earth was created. I mean, after all, in Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 3, it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light." So, this is the first words of the Bible. This is the first thing that the Bible ever tells us. And we get a clear picture of how everything came to be. It was just God, floating around in space, and he just said, "Let there be light." Boom, light. That's all it was. So, why did Jorge create a theory otherwise? The thing about this theory is that it started off pretty simple, with the idea just being that things exploded and stuff was created. That was it. That was the original theory. And which, believe it or not, that theory was inspired from this part of the Bible. In verse 3, it specifically says that God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. In Jorge's original theory, he claims that there was an explosion and things emerged from that, and what makes more light than a bunch of stuff exploding? Seeing this absolutely blew my mind. And it makes me sad to know that because I had separated myself from what I viewed as the wrong opinion, I didn't know about this incredibly amazing way in which God shows us just how prevalent He is, even when we don't recognize it. I may have been doubting God at that time, but when I was willing to listen and learn from what I thought was the opposite side of things, I was able to find stability in something I never would have thought I'd find stability in. That being said, that doesn't mean I still don't struggle. Last year, I took biology, and despite that being the hardest class I've ever taken by far, it fascinated me. I didn't like it, but it fascinated me. learning about all those tiny little microscopic things and how they lived in us and nature and basically everything, and we can't see it. It's just astounding to think about. And, everything's continuously thriving in this circle and, making sure that we are all working together. It shows just how very intricate our ecosystem is. We are a complicated species, all with special needs and things going on within us that are keeping us alive. If something goes wrong, it must be fixed, because everything is working off of each other in perfect harmony, and that to me is a miracle. And I wondered to myself, how come I never recognized this before? When Jorge took his beliefs and used it for science to create the Big Bang Theory, he built our knowledge of the world in ways that aren't always easily described in the Bible. And while I firmly believe the Bible is something you should, look into and put your full faith in, it often skips over details I feel should really be addressed. For example, in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, it says, "Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being." Now, I want you to sit and think for a second about what that truly means when it says, "formed man from the dust of the ground." Just sit and think about that for a moment. In that tiny little sentence, the Bible essentially explains how we are all here, right now, created through the dust in the ground, and not just man itself, but our organs, our blood, our brain, our thoughts, feelings, emotion, personality, culture. All this stuff has grown from a creation that came through dust. That's freaking amazing. But when quarter 4 of biology rolled around, and I was told that none of that is true, but rather it all came from one cell, that was a bit frustrating. Let's put it at that. The theory of evolution is crazy complicated. And frankly, it angered me to be learning about it and to be expected to believe in it, discrediting all the amazing work God has done to create this miracle that is this world. My friends in that class, however, disagreed, and I'm sure you all can guess where that led. We were by far the loudest table in the classroom. Our arguments lasted the entire class. And in case you're wondering, yes, we are still friends. I'm really surprised. But luckily, no one took anything too personally, despite the fact that we were all really bashing each other's opinions. Looking back on it now, I have to say I regret it. It took one snotty remark about me not believing in evolution to completely set me off, spitting out a bunch of different reasons for why they were wrong and I was right, and that is not what God would have wanted in that moment. Romans 12:10 says, "Love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor." Yes, some of you know this one. This means that not only should we love one another and treat them with respect, but we should listen to them rather than turning away from them, even if their opinion does not match yours. And because I was too focused on disproving my friends, I missed an opportunity to tell them about God and how amazing He is and why I feel so passionately about Him. I recognize that I am super loud and opinionated, but there is a difference between having an opinion and enforcing that opinion upon others. God sees everyone, and I mean everyone, as an equal, and He is everywhere. even where you think you won't find him. I mean, look at all the ways God shines through science, despite some of us having turned our back on that viewpoint. God not only can settle our debates, but we can use him to show how he shines through everyone's life, no matter what they believe. We as Christians sometimes get carried away with the idea that because we have accepted God, he has washed our sins, and therefore we are better than everyone else who have yet to discover God's greatness. And it's sad, because I feel as though there is so much potential to make connections to those people we think we are so high above, when God really loves us all the same, no matter who loves him back. And he deserves more than our selfishness is giving him when we create that divide between us as human beings. We are meant to lead others towards him. When we separate ourselves from others, we are separating ourselves from him, because we are failing to do what he wants us to do, which is show his love. So when you leave today, remember this: that if we take the time to learn about others' points of view, it might lead to being able to see more ways in which God works in people's life, and to spread his word by showing those connections to others, because we cannot expect others to listen to us if we cannot listen to them. We must seek to understand so that we can be understood. God did not create our world to have it be divided, but to have each other learn based off of the different experiences and viewpoints that he has given each of us when he gave us free will. Thank you.